This section presents our first project that we're actually going to get into. So we're moving beyond the basics of Django, and we're going to create a database-driven dynamic website. So now we're going to see how to access variables inside of HTML templates, how to latch on to a database in Django. So it's going to require something called migrations, where you're running those migration scripts and pushing data into the database. And we'll see how do you bring it all together and start displaying that data in your website. We're going to now start creating our main website. I'm going to give you an idea of what the final website is going to look like. So we're going to have a home page. We're going to be able to click and go to another page. This is going to be an about page, for example. We're going to have a news page, and this page here is going to have a header just like all the other pages. So we're going to display the title of the page here. And on this news page, we're going to have items that we can enter. So these are coming from the SQLite database. And I can click and go to another using this navigation bar over here on the right. And then I can click home and go back. And at the bottom, we have a footer that's updating the date to the current date. So we're going to make use of Bootstrap as well to integrate this kind of layout. So that is the website we're going to work through for this first project. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to create our project at the command line, and then we're going to open Visual Studio Code and start doing the modifications necessary. So I'm just going to bring up a command line here. And this is the folder I want to work in. I just have the startup website that we were using earlier. And I am going to also stop this web server. So to do that, it's a Control-C, and that stops the web server, which is this one right here. All right, so going back to our terminal, I'm going to create a new project. So that's going to be a Django admin start project, and I'm going to call this main site. All right, and so if I ls, I have my main site. If I go in there, cd main site, ls, we have our two familiar components here, the folder, which is the same as the root folder, main site. This is actually now where the files are for the website. And we have manage python.py. So I am going to do code space dot to open Visual Studio Code in this folder. All right, so here we are, and I'll open up our site. We can see our folders, and notice there's no PYC files in here right now, and that is because we have not run the website, so nothing's been compiled. I'm going to bring up our terminal. Let's go to View, then Terminal, Output Terminal. What I want to do is, first off, create a requirements file. I'm going to do that through pip. I'm going to do it by calling pip freeze and requirements txt. And this is up to you if you want to create it or not. I'm going to show you what this does. So there we are. Basically, it just creates a listing of all the different packages so that you'll have them. And you can see here the different ones. So at the time of this being created, you have a listing of the various packages. Again, that's completely optional. Now what I want to do, and if you remember the first website, when we ran it, we ran server, the website started, and it gave us a warning about migrations not being run. And we didn't really concern ourselves with it because we weren't doing anything with migrations. We just wanted to see the website run. What I'm going to do now is run the migrations. So these are going to be the migrations for a new website. There are some, and I'm just going to show here how to run them. So I'm going to do Python manage py, so our code runner here, and then I'm going to do migrate, and that's going to run any of them. And you can see here applying some of the migrations. And now what we can do is run the website. So I'm going to do Python manage py run server. And that way we can check that our website is running. And now we have our PYC files. You can see the SQLite folder or file came in as well. So I'm going to go back to Safari. This should change to the current website because we're going to have the same address and port number. So I'm going to refresh this, and we can see getting a confirmation that our website is working, all is fine. All right, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code. What we're going to do now is create a class, a view, and a template. So we're going to dive right in with this. We're going to start off by creating a view, and that is going to go into our main website folder, and then we're going to create a folder called templates. So what I'm going to do first is create a views file, and out here in the root, so views.py, and then we're going to work on our templates file. And for that, I am going to create a folder under main site called templates, and in here we're going to create an index file. So it's going to be index.html. Now, none of these are wired up right now, of course, so the website doesn't really know much about them. They're just kind of sitting out there. Inside of our URLs file here, we're going to add an empty URL handler, and that is going to be R, and then we'll have our quotes. And what we want to do is this above the 6 shift, we get this caret $sign. That's just going to go to the root site, and we're going to have index. Save, and here I need a comma, so I'll save that. Name index is not defined, so we're going to go ahead and bring that in. And here we're going to do from.views import index save. You can see behind the scenes there are some things going on. This is basically compiling, and we can see the output is happening from that. While we're here, there's a few other things we're going to want to import, and we're going to import settings. So we're going to do from Django conf import settings. I'm going to save that. We're going to go into our views, and there's a few things we're going to want because we want to put the clock in the footer, and eventually we're going to start working with our models. So I'm going to start off with Django shortcuts import render, this being a view, and we're then going to do date time import date time. That's for our footer. And there's going to be other things we're going to use for models as those come online. We're going to start with the definition index. Request, we're passing into this. And this is going to be the case with most of these definitions. And this index is just going to render out to the index.html, this file that we have here. And so what do we want to render out? We're going to create a context. And this is going to have a variable we'll be able to use called current time. And we're going to actually set that like this with a colon to date time now. And we're going to use one more variable called title. That is going to be home. And we'll save. And then what we're going to do is return. And we want to return our render. This is going to have the request. Go to index.html and pass that context back. So down here, we're in terminal. I'm going to try and clear. Let's see, I think the website is running. Clear and bring back our run server. So let's see, this should give us an idea of any errors. Looks like we're still dealing with that views error here. All right, so that is coming out of urls.py. And actually this right here, our views file should be inside of main website. So right now you can see it's out here in the open. I'm going to drag that, drop it here. That should change now so that it's inside of main website. And going to do a Control-C, try to run that one more time. And that looks like that is okay. And go to Safari. All right, so refresh, and global home is not defined, so we can certainly work on that, and that is coming out of views. All right, so going back into Visual Studio Code and into views, this right here needs to be a string. Save that. So notice down here we got this refresh. After this was not defined, we saved, and we basically got a refresh on our website. So if we refresh the browser, then that should come through. And we're just going to go through and work on the different issues we may be running into. So right now it's having a problem trying to find index, which is okay because we haven't really said anything about that up to this point. But we can see now we are starting to get some interactions. We just need to say, where is this located? Let it know about that. So we're going to continue building out these interactions and get our index.html up and running next. Last time we left off, our website didn't know about some of the files we have. So we have this index.html, but it doesn't know how to access that. And you can see here, we're referencing it, passing it back from this particular view, which is coming out of our index method. So we have right now our index.html inside the templates folder. And the way we're going to tell Django about that is to go into our settings.py. And let's see here, we're going to leave our base directory. That's going to be fine. Everything up here is good. What we're going to start with is the installed apps. And the first thing we're going to do is we have our main site. That's really the only application here. And the middleware is fine. We've got the root URL conf, and that is fine. So here we are with templates. We need to define or tell Django where our templates directory is. So we're going to do that right here in this dirs, and we're going to do os path join. So we're going to make use of base dir. Then we have our templates folder. The way we're going to do that reference is main site templates. That should handle it, and we'll save. And let's see, we're going to just walk down through this. These preprocessors we don't have to worry about. We have our databases, that should be fine. These auth validators, that's all fine. Then finally we get down here, static URL. I think that is fine. Up here, let's see where this part right here, I'm not sure. I think main site may not even be needed, but we go out to our browser. So it looks like it refreshed inside of the terminal view. I'm just going to refresh this, and that seems to be working now. Okay, so continuing on, we're going to get Bootstrap. I'm just going to open a new tab and go to Google. And actually, we can just do get Bootstrap. But what I want to do is Bootstrap Cdn. And I think we should be able to see that here. So we need both of these. And this is actually not the Bootstrap site. This one is. I want to get to a link where they're displaying the entire code snippet. Here we are. All right, so it's right there on the home page. We're going to take this right here and this right here and use them inside of our website for Bootstrap. All right, so going into our index.html, we need to go ahead and start defining the structure for the HTML. So we're going to have our doc type up here, HTML, and just work our way down with some basic HTML here. And let's see, I want to just do some double quotes. And all right, so we'll have our head section. I'm actually going to put that back over here. And we'll have our title. And I'm going to access that variable that we have, which I believe is coming out of our views. This right here is title. And the way to do that is 2 curly braces and then whatever the variable is. And I'm going to put some spaces there so that we can easily see it. That should bring in the word home, which we have as a string. And we'll have just defining HTML5 metadata here, UTF-8. And then we'll have our meta name for the viewport. That's going to be content equals width equals device. width, and we're going to do initial scale equals 1. Close that out. All right, so here's where our links are going to go, and what I can do as well is just close off the head tag here, body, close off body, and then we're going to close off HTML, save, and let's see here. This actually, we're going to just put a div, and this is just a test. Now let's see if we're getting data coming through on that, and if we go back to our site, there it is. Great. All right, so let's see, we need to stay here and get our code. We're going to have this. What I'm going to do is copy everything. I'll just go ahead and delete that middle one whenever we get back here. Just remove this one. And I will push these over. So I'm doing command right bracket, save, and now the font should be a little different. Go back over here. This looks like Times New Roman, and if I refresh, we should see something different, and we do. So Bootstrap is now integrated. What we're going to do next is this right here, this index.html that we're using. We really want to take this code here and use it as the template for all of our other pages. We don't want to keep replicating this code. So I'm going to copy it. And inside of this templates folder, I'm going to create a base.html. I am going to paste all this code in here. Now, the question is, how do we make use of that? So the way we're going to do that is inside of our index.html, we're going to clear it out, and we're going to start making a few calls to extend on base.html. And this is actually going to be a string. And let's see, we're going to have % here. Save. And then what we're going to do is div class. We're going to have page header. We're going to do h1, 2 curly braces, title. So we should now see that variable display. And close div. This right here is actually going to be a block content because we're going to be making use of dynamic data. So block content, and down here we're going to close this block content. So we're going to use our brace with percents and block. All right, give this a little bit of room, save. So going back to base, this is where we had our main content. So how do we ensure that this right here is basically getting injected into this base? Because this is really where we want this div and this variable to display within all of this other structural code. The way we're going to do that, we're going to make use of some Bootstrap code here. So this is going to be a container. All Bootstrap websites need to have a container. So let's move this back over here. Now in the container is where we're going to call our content. We're going to use block content again. And we're going to just close it, just like we did earlier. And this is actually end block is one word. And like that, save. All right, so if we look at this, this is just saying, all right, there's something that we're going to place here. And the way that's going to work is by whoever is extending the base file, which this class clearly is, and it's got its block content ready to go to be substituted right there. Then the next question is, well, how does that exactly happen? It happens first off through the URL. So we redirect to the root, and the root's going to be index.html just by convention. And we can go and look, let's see here inside of our views, this is where we're sending out this index.html. Right here, this finally gets returned, and we just set up some variables here to use. So let's go to our website now and do a refresh. And let's see, did you forget to register? I think I've got extend. I should have extends. And right here with an S. Save, refresh. And there we are. Home is coming out of our class in our views right there. There's that variable title, which we did make use of here. Now we've got our content displaying. We've got Bootstrap integrated as well, and our website is redirecting to our index.html. So we're moving along pretty well. What we're going to do is just keep extending this website until we reach the final website that we viewed earlier. Now we're going to work on building out the home page more. So over here in our index.html, this is really all we're going to have for this home page. We're actually going to work on this base page to get the common layout across different pages going. So up at the top here under body, we're going to start adding in some of the navigation. This is going to come out of Bootstrap. So we're going to do class equals navbar, navbar hyphen default, navbar hyphen fixed top, and close that string. Let's see, we also need to close our div. And then what we're going to do is set up another container here. And in that one, we're going to have a navbar header. So div class equals navbar header. And we're going to have a button. And this button is going to be type button. And we're going to have another string of classes here. So we're going to have navbar toggle collapse. So there's going to be some state changes with this button. We'll have data toggle, and this is going to be collapse. And I need to put quotes here. And again, this is coming off of Bootstrap. So on the Bootstrap webpage, if you look at the buttons, you'll find in the navigation, you'll find these different classes and their state representations. While we're not going to dig through all that, we'll see how they work once we have the implementations going. And here we're going to have target. That's going to be navbar with the pound sign. And we want area expanded. And that is going to equal false. And one more, area controls will equal navbar. Close that. All right, so we have two divs. We're going to go ahead and start closing some things off here so we don't lose track. So I'll close the button, and we're going to come back. There's a few things we're going to put inside of there. And let's see, I want to close that div, and then we'll close our nav. All right, then inside button, there's some attributes. So we're going to have a few spans. So we'll have span class, SR only. And this is going to be toggle navigation, close span. We'll have another span. This class is going to be icon dash bar. We're going to set up 3 of these and close span. So I'm going to copy. We'll have 2 more like that and save. Below button, we're going to have a navbar brand. So this is going to be class equals navbar brand with a hyphen. href is just going to be a backslash. And we're going to do main site, so our website title. All right, so there is something else we need to do in this container. So if we take and collapse, I'm going over here on the left where these numbers are, collapse this header, navbar header, we're going to work in a new nav here. This is going to be ID navbar, and we're going to have class equals collapse navbar collapse. And then we're going to have the different items that we saw on that main website on the right, which were links to different pages. So we had home, we had about, we had news. Those are going to be in unordered list. And this is going to have a class of nav, then navbar, nav. Go ahead and close this list and create our different links. We're going to have first class active, and that's going to be href \. So just to the default page, the home page. And that is in fact home right here, and close our li. And we're going to have, I'm going to copy this because we're going to make use of it minus the active part, because only one of these are ever going to be active. So I'll remove that, remove that. We'll have here about, and we're going to also do about. Now we don't have about, and we're going to do news. And we don't have news yet, but we're going to go ahead and build this out so that we can just see the homepage layout as it's being developed. Okay, so we need to close this div, and there we go. I'm going to put a space there and close that. So that should work for this layout. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So I'm going to go over to the browser and refresh. So let's see, we have them up here. What I want to do now is add in the footer below this div. So here's our main content, and below the content we're going to do a footer. This is going to have a class of footer, and again, this is coming out of Bootstrap. All right, so in our footer, we want to do the current date. So I'm going to do a div. Once again, we're going to have a container. So 3 sections of containers, what we have now. Close this div. And the footer, we're just going to do a paragraph tag here, text muted for our effect. Close that, and here comes our variable. So current date, and close that. And if you remember, we're going to go into views. We have current date. That's where it's coming from. And we should be able to go back now to the browser, refresh, and there's our footer. We're going to make use of something called a sticky footer, so this will then be at the bottom of the page. All right, so let's look at what's going on with this up here. And if I click that, that's how we want it to work for home and for main site. Now, if we try about, of course, it's going to do a page not found. All right, so back in Xcode and to our base site, we're going to see what the issue is with our navigation. I'm going to expand everything here so we can see. So one issue right here at the top, I have my navbar attribute outside of this string. So let's see if we have a difference here. All right, so that's starting to look a little bit better. And go back over here. And I'm going to start closing these to make sure I'm not missing any kind of div. So that closes that. Close this div, that closes that. Close this main container inside the nav, that closes that. The navs all close each other. And go back out to the site here. And we're going to go back to our other site just to get a look at what it should look like. So if I go into terminal, I'll be able to start up the other site. So right here is the site that we want to actually mimic. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Let's see. I'm going to have to stop this one over here. Control C. I think I'll have to do that from Visual Studio Code because that's where I started it. So I'll Control C this here. Go to my other site. Try to start it again. And there we go. I'm going to copy this. Go into Safari. Actually, I don't need to copy it, but I'm going to refresh. Okay, so we still have our information up here. And if I click on something, well, if I click on news, that's where we're going to get these other buttons. So if I click on them, that's when they're going to show up, and they're not going to show up any other time. So we have just a little bit of gap right here that we are missing on our site. And then, of course, the footer will need to be fixed as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this site. start our site that we've been working with. There we go. And do a refresh. So you can see we're not far off the bat. So I'm going to refresh this. We'll go back to our site and go to, let's just go to the home page. All right. So that's good. We just need to add a little space there. And then we have this sticky footer that we're going to work with. So we're going to work on those next. We're going to now add our footer. We're also going to make an adjustment to the top of our website. So if we go to our site, you can see here we're kind of getting clipped on our title, and then our footer is not at the bottom. So what we're going to do is get a file called sticky navbar footer, or it's actually sticky footer navbar. That is what we want. And if we go here, we'll go into the Bootstrap website. There's not actually a link to download it, but if you inspect, you can see the code here, and I'll open up the head section, and here's what we're looking for, this CSS right here. What I'm going to do is edit, and I'm going to copy that, and I'll go into our code and paste that in. And notice here there's no website URL pre-pinned. It's actually coming off of this URL, so we're going to grab that as well. Okay, so back to Visual Studio Code, and we're going to paste that below our Bootstrap code. So I'm going to do a link, a rel equals style sheet, and an href. Paste in, and I'll just close that out. Now we're going to go back and get the other part of this, which is up here at the top, and paste here. Save. Let's make sure we've got our slash. We do. And then I'm going to go back and refresh this page. And there we go. That looks pretty good. One other thing we want to do is go ahead and pick up jQuery. And let's see, jQuery. I think you can just type that in, and then we'll be brought to the jQuery website. We want to get the CDN for jQuery. Let's see, if I go to the download, I think, no, not there. So I'm going to type in jQuery CDN. All right, here we go, code.jQuery. That might be better. There it is. We can grab the minified version. That'll be fine. This one you can't really debug, so if you need to do any kind of debugging, you would just get the uncompressed version. We'll paste that below our Bootstrap JS, or actually let's paste above our Bootstrap JS. So right here, save, just go back to our site now and make sure everything is still looking okay. Refresh. All right, and click here, then we know these are not there, these last two, about and news, so we're going to add those, and that's looking pretty good. So now we can go ahead and move on to adding the about and the news sections. We have our site, basically the layout, working quite well. What we're going to do now is add a couple of files into this templates folder. We're going to have news, and we're going to have an about. And just make sure those are in that templates folder, and that looks good. The about is pretty simple, so we're going to go to, let's see, our index and copy and go to our about and paste. That's really all we need as far as the view goes. Now we're going to have to make some modifications in our views.py because we're only returning an index here, so we want to return something for the about as well. So to do that, I'm going to go down here and create another definition, and this is going to be for our about. This is really going to follow the same kind of format as what we followed up here. So I'm just going to copy, paste, and we're going to call this about. This is going to be about.html, and let's see, I think that is good. All right, so let's go to our website. Now you can see we got a refresh down there. And try this out. So if I refresh, the about should be live. If I click, and you can see the page is not coming up because we do need to do a modification in our URLs. So let's see, we're going to leave this on about. we're going to go back into our URLs here. So we have the root page right there, and we're going to make this modification so we can begin bringing the about in. And that's actually going to be very similar to how we're making use of the admin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and start building out the pattern that we're going to make use of. So this is going to be another single quote. We're going to have our up caret news and $. Then it's just going to be news. And we're going to grab this because we just did news, and we're going to do about here and here. So same patterns. Now we need to do an import just like we did here for our index. So what we can do is, since this is all coming out of views, we can just do a comma, about, comma, news. That should handle it. And what we're going to run into, you can see here, kind of import name news because it doesn't know anything about news. So back inside of our views, we need to do another similar kind of method for news. And for now, we're also going to have to do something with our view, but we can just go ahead and do the same kind of view code that we did for our about. And I am just going to copy this. News will eventually get more complex because we're going to be displaying data from our database. For now, this should work. So let's see, we're going to go to our about, just copy this, go back here and paste, and I think that may handle the issue, and try a refresh on about at least. Cannot find, I think the server stopped after that last error, so I'm going to Control C down here and run again. Let's see, cannot import name news, so it's still having issues with that. Go back to here, news, that is, let's see, and put this down here. That may have broke it. Okay, so this is looking good. We're not getting any errors now. Go back to our site, refresh. Okay, that's about. And actually this one up here should be highlighted. Notice home is still highlighted. If I click about and I click news, okay, news is not coming in. I think it said new. We want news. All right, let's look at that. This is looking good. Go back to URLs, news. Go into our page. Let's see, where is new coming from? We have an S there. All right, let's go back to this. So the error is actually in our navigation. So going back to the base. Let's see here. Scroll down and should be, I think, open this up and open this top one up. Let's see, where is that? Right here, S. Save and go back here. All right, so home, about, news. All right, that looks good. And all of our pages are rendering out. The URL is now correct. All right, so these at the top up here, it's not highlighting as we go. We get a little bit of fade, but home stays highlighted. I think that may actually be how the other site is working as well. So what we're going to do is just take a quick look and make sure we're not missing anything in that regard. So I'm going to stop the site and start our other site. So let's run this one. Go back to Safari. Now I'm going to do a refresh. This is going to refresh the target site, so the finished product. You can see here we're getting our content coming in. We have our buttons over here. So this is the target site. And if I click, yeah, notice they're not doing anything. So that is okay then, meaning we're not getting the gray block highlighting on these, although we still get our fades, so that's fine. All right, so we're going to keep working. Eventually we're going to get to where we can see our buttons here and start having some data coming through in the news page, because that's kind of where we're going to be at moving forward, is just getting this data coming through, because this is really where a lot of the dynamic content is going to be happening. I've got our news page pulled up, and what we're going to do is start making some modifications to this layout. This is going to be the more complex layout that we're going to have, or one of the more, and it's going to have the dynamic content here for articles that we're going to create, and then on the right we're going to have basically a navigation. So going back into Visual Studio Code, this is why it's so plain right now, because really there's nothing in here. Just a very basic show the title, and we have a div. So we're going to start expanding this now. This right here can stay. We're going to have the title, and that way it looks like the other pages. But we're also going to add in a class for row. And now we're going to start building out what we want this to look like. We're going to make use of Bootstrap. That's where this row is coming from, and page header. That's where all these classes are really coming from. So we are going to have a column medium 9. And the way it works with Bootstrap is that you have 12 columns, and then you can divide your layout up amongst those 12. So we want basically where the main content will display to be a bigger portion of the web page than the right side navigation. So basically it's going to be 3/4 of the page is content, and then 1/4 of the page is going to be navigation. And the way we're doing that is to divide it up using these columns. So we have this 9 plus 3 for the navigation, that's 12, and then you can see how the ratio works out to 3/4 and 1/4. So in here, we are going to build the static part of this out. Then we're going to go back and start working on the content that we want to bring in. So I'm going to add another div. This is going to be a class tab content, and I'll close this, and I'm going to close row as well, so that way we have matching divs. Save. And as we build this out, we'll take a look, and that way we can see what exactly is going on with the site. So this is our first column, and I'm going to put down here main, actually I'm going to use a paragraph, main content here. Save. All right, and let's see, we want to continue inside of this row, so we're going to do another column. So this is going to be div class equals, we'll have a column of 3, size 3. Close that out. This is our navigation. So we're going to put these inside of unordered lists. This is going to have a class. It's going to have some of the navigation components. So nav pills, nav stacked. Close that. And then each of the navigation components is going to be basically an li. So I'm going to do li and close here, and then we're going to have in here a link. So a data toggle pill. And this is coming straight off of the Bootstrap website. They show how to put together these kinds of navigations using this particular syntax. So I'll just do that for now. And we'll have our article names here. So article name, close that, and that should handle it. All right, so I'll do a final save. We'll go back and check the site now. Refresh. So it's starting to come together, and there's nothing I can click there. So that's basically the layout. What we're going to do next is start getting into the back end parts of the website to create our models and have some of that content begin coming through into this news page. We're going to now add in some of our model code for the news page mainly. So this is the page here we finished the layout on. Now we're going to go into our models. And of course, if you look on the left, you don't actually see a models file in here. So we're going to have to add that manually. And I'm just going to call it models, py. We want this in the root, so I'm going to drag this up to here, close templates, and make sure it is there. All right. In here, we're going to start with an import. It's going to be Django.db import models. This will give us access to some of the Django scaffolding that we're going to need for our model classes. So we're going to have a class called article. and we're going to do models.model. Again, this is coming out of the import we just created. And here we're going to have a few different fields. So we're going to have an ID that's going to be of type models integer field. We're going to set a primary key, and this is getting into what's going to happen inside of the database whenever we are ready. And so we'll do a title field. This is going to be of type char field max underscore length equals 32. So this is going to be basically a string, and we're going to create another string for our content, and this is going to be models, another char field. We're going to have a max length, and this is going to be bigger, so 2048. Save. Now that should handle our models, but what we also need to do is inside of our views and URLs, we're going to have to make some modifications. So if we go into URLs, actually this may be okay. Yeah, I think for now this is going to work. We're going to go into views. So you can see here what we have so far. And so for news, there's going to be a few other things in here. And what I'm going to do is basically start stubbing out some of this. So we're going to have a populate DB, and then we're going to do articles. It's going to get our content. So this is going to be get articles. And our context, let's see, we want to have something else here called articles that we can access. This is going to be articles that we got above, so articles with an S, and then we'll do a comma there. And the context looks good. We return our render. All right, so we have, let's see, populate DB. We want to go ahead and define it and define get articles. All right, that's going to be new method. So down here, we're going to have get articles. Get articles is going to get an article objects underscore all and return results. So this right here is going to access the article table and get all the content out of the article table and return it back to us. And we have populate DB. So in here, we're going to say if article objects count equals 0, and we're going to do article, and here we can save some content. So we're going to do it like this, and we're going to create some of these items. So we're going to have, let's say, title equals first item. Then we have our content, and that is going to be, this is the first DB item. And we can copy these and use them again to create a few more. So we'll have second item. This is the second DB item. And if we want, we can do third, and this is the third. Save. All right. Now we're going to have to do a migration, of course, for this to populate. So we have our models now. We go back to models. That will create this article table in the database. So what I'm going to do is stop the server. We're going to apply these migrations. So we're going to do make migrations. So Python make migrations. Now you'll notice over here what we have. I'm going to close templates, and we can basically see everything we have. So we have our 2 files and our templates folder. That's about it. I'm going to go ahead and run make migrations. So let's see, no changes detected. What we are going to do is also an import right here inside of our views. So forgot that one. We're going to do models, import article. I think that should seal the deal. We're going to try this again on our make migrations. So there is still a piece that is missing somewhere to make the migration stick. Now inside of our views as well, we want to do an import. So from .models import article. And we're going to add an admin class. So admin py, and this should be in the root. Let's see if I can get that to stick. Okay, so it is, it's fine. We're going to have from models import article. Then we're going to have site register and article. So for our admin, and then we're going to have admin and one more import. So from Django contrib import admin. All right, save that, and let's see, I think that is good. All right, so what we're going to do now is see if we can run our migrations. I'm going to stop the website, and what I want is Python manage py make migrations. Let's see here. Looks like there is an issue, no module, Django contrib. And I think that's coming out of admin. Yeah, so this, I believe, is a lowercase d. I'm going to try this again. And let's see, no changes detected. So what we're going to do, Python manage py migrate. This should then push what our models down into the database. Hopefully. Let's see, apply, no migrations, so apply. All right, so I'm going to start the website again and just take a look at our admin section. Actually, what we need to do before that is create an admin. So I'm going to do Python manage py create super user. And I'll just do admin. I'm going to do admin at test.com open because it needs to be 8 characters. All right, and start the website. Okay, so let's go to the website, refresh. Let's see, article is not defined. So this might give us some hints as to why the migrations didn't apply. Article in lowercase. All right, so let's go to the admin page real quick, which is just admin/admin. I'm going to do admin, put in my password, log on. Not now. Well, articles is there, so that's good. Looks like the migrations went. So going to the site, so I can go up here, click view site, and go to news, and take a look at where this might be coming from. So back to Visual Studio Code. Let's go into templates, news. I don't think we have anything in here. And go into models py. All right. And what we're looking for is a lowercase article. All right, go into views. Could be coming here. Articles. Let's see, articles. These look good. I'm going to go back to the website. Let's see here. Global name article. Populate DB line 35. So let's see what that is. Right. So try that. And okay, that's running. I'm going to go into our admin one more time here. And what I want to do is look in here. Okay. So although the link is there, it looks like the migrations are probably one of the issues. So I'm going to click, go back to news. Let's see, main site, and no such table, main site article. So we're not actually looking for that kind of table. I am going to stop the site, and I'm going to try the make migrations and migrate one more time here. Make migrations. Let's see, no changes. Migrate. Nothing to apply. So let's see if I have a main site article anywhere. Going into our news. There's nothing in the news page, our HTML, that is referencing this as far as I know. I'm back in views.py, and I'm just looking at this right here, objects, so it's dot, and that could create issues. So let's make sure these down here look okay. I'm going to save that. All right, so I'm going to try and do make migrations. Still no changes detected. Migrate, still nothing. I am going to go back to the site and do a refresh there. So refresh. Let's see, I'm going to get the site going. All right, run server and refresh. All right, so we still have that going on. I am going to try to force migration. So I'm going to do make migrations and app name. And the app name is something we put here. So I am going to follow with that. See if we have any difference. So that works. Now I am going to try to do a migrate right here. See if that works. And looks like we are getting a lot further along. So just forcing the name there made the migrations apply. All right, so I'm going to run the server now. And we're going to take a look and see if we have any kind of difference. And if I go back to Safari and refresh, all right, much better. And go to the admin. Click this and see if that error has gone away, and it has. So we have some article objects here, and we can see they're populated. So they're populated off of that code that we have. And if we go back, we can see that inside of our views right here. So when we're calling this news, it's populating. If the count is 0, if the count is not 0, we're not going to continue populating. We're just going to put that initial code in there. So now that we've got that, we can then begin working on our news page and start bringing that data into the news page. Now that we've got our news site dynamic, or our news page, and we can go to different sections, this is basically pulling that static data that we initially created. So if we go back into Visual Studio Code and we go to our views.py, here we have our populate DB, and it ran this first time and it added this data. But what if we want to add our own data to the website? So what we want to do is go to the admin. So I'm going to go to admin. I'm already logged in, and I'll go to articles. And I have the 3 here. I'm going to click add article over here in the top right. And what I'm going to do is just put 55 test 55. This is the content for 55, just so it's easy to read which one this is. All right, and you can see here I've got the 4 different objects. Go back to the site, go to news, and here we are. So we have our test 55. I click it, and there's its content. And then, of course, I can go back to any of these others. So what if I want to delete one of these? Go here, go to articles, and then I've got the 4. I'll leave the new one in and just delete number 2. So I'm going to delete one of these originals. And it's not going to come back, although it's in that populate DB function that we have. Because we're not 0, it's not going to rerun, so we're not going to get that one back. We'd have to just manually add one. But that's how easy it is to add more content to this site and then delete some of that content. Of course, let's say we have this 3rd item. We can also do different manipulations. So if I go into articles, I've got 3rd item. Let's see, that would probably be this one. And let's say this is the 3rd DB item content. And just do save here. Go back to the main site. Go to news and go to 3rd item. And it's updated. So fully functional website basically at this point that you can do a lot of manipulations on your data that's inside of the database.